at any time. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. This is Betska, the Guru Coach, together with co-host Vashisht from Delhi, India. I'm from Canada. And our beautiful guest today is Tami Hay from Androsson, Alberta, Canada. And wow, what a famous and beautiful spirit we've got on our program today. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She's a poet, a writer, a vegan grandmother, and lover of the earth. Tami's own path from healing Crohn's through a reconnection with the flow field of Earth's pulse, which is fascinating when you think about it, to engaging as a writer, painter, and poet in creative action to protect all sentient beings and their homes. Tami's love for all children eventually inspired her to launch an organization called A Million Vegan Grandmothers. I'm going to join, so all you grandmothers out there, come and join us. And it's an organization that promotes a vegan lifestyle for the liberation of humans and non-humans alike. She is currently writing her third and fourth books, Grief Mapping and the Essence of Sacred Relationships, that is inspired by the environmental, relational, and spiritual challenges posed by our present time. Beautifully written, Tami. Welcome.
Thank you. It's
Welcome.
such an honor to be here. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Well, we can talk about so many topics. I'm sure Raj would say the same thing. There's lots for us to discuss, but let's move right into, you open your bio with the fact that you healed your body from Crohn's. How did you do that? I'm sure there are many people out there with intestinal issues, and I've got my own stories around helping people with their Crohn's, but tell us how you did it.
Well, our gut is our epicenter of processing everything that comes in to us, whether it's through our mouth, whether it's through our head, our ability to process ends up in that center of our beingness. And like every organ in the traditional Chinese medicine, every organ stores an emotion, and the large intestine stores sadness, actually. And I had a lot of childhood sadness that I was dancing as fast as I could from being able to process it. I was a very busy person, and Crohn's flattened me. And anyone that has an issue that comes their way, they either do it with wonder or with woe. And you hear a lot of people that come out of maybe even a death sentence, and they're told, you have so many months to live, and they say, no, no, I don't think so. I think you're incorrect. We give a lot of power away to medical establishment. Well, for me, I tried medication for a very short time, and I knew that wasn't my answer. And I said to my GI doctor, I said, I'm going to go off this medication. She says, you're going to die. And I said, I'm going to die trying. And I went away to a wellness center in the States. And at the same time, I was processing deep, raw sadness. I was always a happy-go-lucky person, but deep down inside, in my bowels, there was some sadness that needed to be attended to. So it was a very powerful experience for me. I went away to a raw food vegan retreat at Hippocrates Health Institute, went on to study nutrition at different centers, including ending up at the Tree of Life in Patagonia, Arizona, with Dr. Rabbi Gabriel Cousens and studying. I'm one of his master students, and what Crohn's ended up being for me was a spiritual awakening on the deepest sense. I watched everything fall away. I was a high-end athlete, and I watched my body disappear in front of me, my muscles disintegrate, my skin saggy. It was just interesting. And I'm like, and I remember one day saying, if I'm not my body, what am I? And I ended up having a near-death experience during this time. My potassium levels got so low that my heart stopped, and I hovered, and I didn't want to come back like a lot of people. And I was told, you're to come back to let people know they're loved.
Oh,
That was my
wow.
mission. You're to come
Wow.
back, let people know they're loved.
Mm.
And I came back into my body. My daughter got me to the hospital. There was a woman that was from a care center. So she was in a long-term care center, and she was there because her catheter got infected. And I literally was grabbing my IV pole to go over to touch her. And I could feel what was coming out of my hands into her because she said, "Oh, you're a massage therapist. The only time I'm touched is when somebody's changing my catheter, or I don't know
Oh.
how long it's." And I could feel the love that I needed to provide for her. And then
Mm-hmm.
it no longer mattered what was going on for me, that I needed to take care of this vessel to be love. And so I guess, how did I do it? I did it with a raw food diet. I did it with clearing the emotional residue in my gut. I did it through every day making choices that are good for me and not always making the mark, but getting my bare feet on the earth when I can, staying super hydrated as part of my heal protocol that I teach in my book Sacred Sovereignty. And I did it through remembering that I'm love. Because when we live in fear, our gut remembers fear and it
Mm-hmm.
reacts really harshly to fear and it creates
Yeah.
an acidic environment immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And acid in our bowels is not a good thing. So I kind of went roundabout with that question, but I'm super passionate to share that we aren't victim to the practices that are going on and to remember that there's ways through it and that we need to eat as clean as possible because even glyphosate that is sprayed on all conventional food, Roundup, even one ingredient out of that 200 to 300 cesspool of chemicals on our food creates leaky gut in 20 minutes. 15 to 20
Wow.
minutes when it hits the colon lining, glyphosate creates leaky gut. So does
Wow.
alcohol. So does a lot of
Mm-hmm.
other things. So if we don't want to have um, a gut that is dysbiotic, then we need to be caring for it like we do a baby. Our gut
Mm-hmm.
lining is only one cell thick, so we need to treat it well.
So are you strictly on a raw vegan diet then?
No, because I live in Canada. And
Yeah.
I remember waking up one day and saying to my friend who's also in a scene, I said, "I'm taking my sovereignty back. I love soup."
Right on. Well, because I was going to ask you, how do you keep warm, right? Like I have like a lot of women, I have a cold body, and you can only eat so much ginger, right? Raw ginger to keep you warm. So, well, that
Yeah, well, there's
okay.
there's tips to that, and I do
Hmm.
teach tips because I think it's good to eat predominantly raw. So if
Yeah.
we have a smoothie, that's really good for us, and that's raw, and we can have. But what I do is I warm up my salads. So I will have a predominantly raw salad with some sprouts, and then I will saute some squash or whatever I have cooked in the fridge, like some black rice. I'll saute that, and then I'll add it hot to my salad, and my salad's still all raw food, but it
Yeah.
warms everything up. The
Oh,
other thing I
right.
do is sometimes I'll have a cup of miso with a salad. So I do
Hmm.
all kinds of things, but there is a way to eat still high raw
Hmm.
in winter. Yeah.
Ah, thank you for reminding me. My Chinese medical doctor suggested that I make my salads warm by, you know,
Mm.
tossing them in the frying pan for a minute or whatever.
Well,
And
not all your vegetables, because then you can keep
yeah,
all your vegetables raw. Just one component of it,
right.
heat it up to a nice high temperature, toss it into your salad. Then it warms up your whole salad, but most of the
Right.
vegetables in the salad are still raw. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. That's very good. It's just about warming up the cells of the food, right? Cool.
exactly.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm sure that that's a podcast all on its own, but I want to move into Million Vegan Grandmothers and why you started this amazing organization.
Well, thank you. I have been doing since the time of 2020 when a lot of people started awakening to what's going on the planet because they had to sit back for a while and take a pause.
Yes.
Um, I met a really awesome group of people called Climate Healers, and Dr. Sailesh Rao founded Climate Healers, and I was very interested in the pinky promise he made to his granddaughter that we were going to stop eating our family and that by 2026 was the time at the rate we were losing vertebrate animals, our wildlife, at the rate we were losing them on the planet, we wouldn't be able to sustain life by the end of 2026 if we didn't change.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined Climate Healers, and about a year and a half ago, I woke up. I had this dream, and I said to one of my dear friends, who you may love to interview sometime, his name's Jeff Francis. He's a 52-year vegan and one of the most incredible vegan artists I've ever met. He had the first vegan record label. And
Wow.
Jeff said, "There's something with the grandmothers." I said, "I know. I had a dream that 1,000 of us come together and we're like all over and we're doing these really powerful things." And he said, "Yeah, 1,000 of you." And then one of the vegan grandmothers, Judy Carmen, she wrote a book called Homo Ahimsa, Who We Are and How We're going to Change the World. Beautiful book. It's become kind of the coin, Homo Ahimsa. And she said, we are going to be a million. There's easily, if you crunch numbers, there's easily a million of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
Hmm.
sure. Well, I tell you, as a new grandmother, my grandson is only 10 months old, but I just, like you, I just want to clean up this planet, because I want him to be raised in a world that is clean and pure and honest, um, where there's no violence of any kind towards people or animals. I mean, that's my dream, and I'm holding on to that dream. And that's why I wrote my latest book, which is called I Heal Me. I wanted people to heal themselves. Okay, so what is the mission and vision of this group?
Thank you. Yeah, our mission is really well, what it's ended up being. My neighbor just dropped by to see if I
Oh.
wanted to walk with the dogs. So she's walking the dogs with me. So, again, community, right? Our mission
Yeah.
is community. So
Mm,
here we are, an elder woman that lives down the road from me and the community of sharing responsibility even for our canine friends. It's turned out we started with a letter writing campaign. And we started writing letters and letters and letters and letters. And it started with something we saw on um, plant-based news, where they were trying to shut down a really inhumane lab. And they said they weren't able to do it, but it was a bunch of grannies that kept writing letters, and they got tired of the letters from the grannies. And so they shut down the lab. And what they
yay.
did in all their fancy ways of tweeting and tweaking and whatever it was, and Instagramming, they weren't able to do it. And so we're like, okay. And so we started with this beautiful um, letter writing campaign. And we've written a lot of letters. A lot of them are on climatehealers.org because the grandmothers are under the umbrella of Climate Healers. We meet every Wednesday. And what it's turned out to be, as well as anything else, is a support community of grandmothers and
Mm-hmm.
grandfathers. And there's other people. You don't have to be a grandmother to be part of the grandmother community. And we have a convergence every three months with climate healers, where we speak on different things. We usually have a documentary that we're screening, but we would like to branch out and do a little bit more groundwork. I can imagine one day the grandmothers, when there's a million of us, and there isn't a million yet, but that was our vision, so that's what we're holding,
Mm-hmm.
um, are going to all walk out and put up barricades to stop the cows from having to lose their calves every time they
Mm-hmm.
have their
Yeah.
baby
Yeah.
worldwide.
Mm.
Can you see how that would be different
Yep.
if the
Yep.
grandmothers everywhere said, "No more. You're not going to take away any more babies. We're not
Mm.
allowing that anymore."
Wow.
So that's the vision. That's one of the visions that I see happening in this transition around the
Mm.
grandmothers.
That's
Um,
awesome.
just recently, and I thought, and we never know how our energy impacts. But there was a huge campaign to free Captain Paul Watson. And I felt like I wasn't putting enough energy into it. And I was healing in my tiny home. I built a straw bale tiny home off the grid. And I was doing some healing in there because I injured some ribs. And I got a message from Captain Paul Watson's assistant, and she messaged people individually instead of sending out another another email, group email, kind of MailChimp or whatever it is. And she said, I'm really worried about Paul. I went there for his birthday. I don't know if he's going to be able to get out of prison. I really need to know that, he's going to be okay. Can we please do everything? Can the grandmothers please, like write some letters and like, can we get really active? And she gave us an example of a letter to send to the minister in Denmark. And I was saying to the grandmothers, we need to embody it. It's not I hope he gets out. I said, I see him. So let's do our meditation. I see him getting released before the 18th. I see him crying. I see everybody around him crying. I see him making a speech saying he gets to be home for Christmas and see his sons. I feel it in me. And this was my meditation. This is what I've been meditating on for Captain Paul Watson was released a couple days ago before the court hearing on the 18th. They just said
Wow.
they let him go. So,
That's awesome.
right? And so
Right.
did our letters and our energy
Prayers. Yeah.
make a difference along with all the other people that have crying out, really well-known people like Jane Goodall have been speaking out against him being in prison. I don't know. We don't know. It's a humble
No.
kind of experience to
Yeah.
present that energy. But I felt I was part of it. That's all I could say. I
That's
felt I was part
awesome.
of it.
Tami, we're going to take a pause and we'll be back, everyone, for part 2. Don't go away. Stay with us for more with Tami Hay.